The worst moment was in front of the whole office, under the stage lights, with everyone's phones out. I had just finished my short thank you for a small client retention award, and my team lead leaned into the microphone and said, "Do not act like you matter here." The room went quiet. My smile froze. People who barely knew me looked at me like I was the joke of the year. I work at Clearwater Realty Partners. My title was Senior Portfolio Coordinator, which is a fancy way of saying I managed contracts, tracked invoices, and kept deals from derailing. I oversaw a portfolio of 27 small apartment buildings and worked directly with 4 account executives. My job mattered because each lease and each repair order moved cash through our pipeline. A missed approval could cost tens of thousands. I had spent 3 years building a reputation for catching problems early and turning messy files into clean closings. My team lead was Jonah. He had been with the company 8 years, and he liked being the loudest person in the room. He had an ego that smelled like aftershave and a habit of taking credit for other people's work. He protected his image fiercely. Early on, he would tutor me in negotiation and then use my notes in meetings without mentioning me. At first, I let it slide. I thought we were a team. I secretly liked the guy. Then came the promotion plan. Clearwater decided to roll out a new agent incentive they called the Starter Boost. It would give a one-time promotion raise of $12,000 to agents who brought in 3 new owner referrals in a quarter. It was a strategic move to grow our small building portfolio. I ran the compliance checks on the pilot. I found a hole. The program relied on a single signed referral form, but the referral agreement in the pilot packets had a missing signature block and a clause that allowed manual approvals. That clause had worked in the past only because someone always matched a wire receipt to the contract. When the program scaled, that manual matching would become invisible. I made a memo on March 2 and emailed it to Jonah, the head of operations, and the compliance manager. The subject line was Starter Boost, approval risk and recommended controls. I wrote in plain language. I said the promotion raise program could be exploited and that we should require 2 independent approvals plus a scan bank receipt before any payout over $800. I attached a red-lined referral form and a proposed control checklist. I also printed the memo, initialed every page, and put it in folder number 12 in the shared drive where we kept policy updates. Jonah glanced at the email, then put it in his later folder. He said, "We do not need bureaucracy for something that small." I smiled and said nothing. I took a breath. I walked away instead of arguing. That was the first time I stayed calm when someone else wanted to blow past a real risk. 6 weeks later, they launched the Starter Boost. Jonah ran the kickoff meeting in conference room 3B. He took the applause and called the idea bold. He emphasized speed over paperwork. 3 agents cashed out the promotion raise in the first month. The company moved fast. The first sign of trouble was a client, an owner named Mr. Patel, who called our office on April 18. He said an agent promised him a referral fee in exchange for a signed lease that had never been filed. Customer service created ticket number 412 in our support system and pinged my inbox because I was in charge of contract reconciliation. I pulled the folder. No referral form. No receipt, just a forwarded text from the agent claiming authorization. I started a paper trail, email to the agent asking for the form, a calendar invite for a phone call, an invoice request to accounting for the promotion raise payout. I logged every step in our ticket. Then Jonah emailed me and asked, "Why is this open? Close it. It is a misunderstanding." I replied with a calm status update and attached the checklist I had proposed in March. He replied, "Too late now. Pay it and move on." I could have argued. I could have escalated. I chose to keep logging. I printed the emails, saved the screenshot of the forwarded text, and saved a receipt image posted in the agent's shared folder. I stayed calm and meticulous. That is the second time I breathed and kept working when most people would have stormed into a fight. Problems multiplied. Over the next 6 months, 32 emails piled into my folder that all traced back to the Starter Boost rollout. I counted them later, 32 separate threads, each one worse than the last. The second escalation event was a banking error. An accounting clerk mistyped an account number on a promotion payout on May 10, and a $12,000 wire landed in a contractor account tied to an unrelated property. The contractor returned the money after a week, but the owner who was supposed to receive the money was furious. He had signed a contract believing the payment was guaranteed. He threatened to pull 3 buildings out of our management portfolio. The third escalation was a compliance notice. On June 2, a compliance officer in our corporate office flagged an audit discrepancy. There were payouts without two approvals. The compliance officer scheduled a review meeting. Jonah nodded and told the office that it was a paperwork problem he would handle. In front of everyone, he said, "Eva overreacts. This is nothing. She likes red lines." She. No, I was the only woman on that panel. People tittered. I smiled politely and moved my notes closer instead of snapping back. That was the third time I stayed calm when the easiest move was to combust. Then came the real blow. At our mid-year awards ceremony in July, the same event where he had told me, "Do not act like you matter here," Jonah publicly announced a new operational structure. He said he would be promoted to Regional Operations Director and that he would be leading the Starter Boost expansion. He thanked the team for their hard work and singled out 2 agents for initiative. He never mentioned my memo. He did the usual thing he did when he won. He folded my work into his victory speech. A week after the ceremony, the company announced bonuses. My name was on a smaller list. I had been passed over for a leadership training program I had been promised in my year plan. Jonah had been the one to sign off. In the same week, a client called our legal department accusing Clearwater of mishandling funds tied to promotion payments. The legal department opened a formal inquiry and asked me to prepare a packet of all Starter Boost documentation. I turned it over. I did what I always do. I produced clean papers. But then Jonah made the move I had been waiting for but dreading. He forwarded a selection of our internal emails to the head of operations and quoted me in a message to the compliance officer. He said, "Eva told me not to worry about the receipts. She said it was a non-issue." He reworked our exchange to make it sound like I had downplayed the risk. The subject line was new, Starter Boost clarification. He included only partial threads. His tone was clinical. He wrote, "Please note that operations followed Eva's guidance." Within 2 days, I was on a call with Human Resources and a senior partner, and they asked me to explain why the controls were missing. People who had known me for years asked me to justify my work. That was the first major loss, reputation. 32 email threads had been turned into a narrative that I had not protested, when in truth I had protested loudly on March 2 with a memo and a checklist. I felt sick. I sent the Human Resources representative a calm email asking for a formal meeting and attached my March 2 memo. I included calendar invites, a scanned version of the folder note in shared drive number 12, and the timestamped doc properties of the redlined form. I did not raise my voice. I asked for the meeting to be recorded for accuracy. She responded that the meeting would be private. I agreed. Escalation number 2 was an opportunity. I was taken off a major client account that I had been cultivating for 9 months. The client, a group that managed 6 buildings and roughly $1.5 million in annual rental revenue, was reassigned to Jonah. He argued that because he was becoming Regional Operations Director, he was the natural owner. I lost the chance at a commission that would have been life-changing. I felt like everything I had built was being handed to the person who had publicly humiliated me. Escalation number 3 was trust inside the team. A colleague I had mentored, Samira, stopped sending me drafts for review. Samira told me she was uncomfortable being part of anything that might cause her to have to testify in an internal review. That stung. The one person I thought of as a friend pulled away. I reached a low point in late September. The compliance inquiry broadened into a formal review. Human Resources placed an administrative hold on 2 of my accounts for access to the shared drive. I had to request documents through ticket system number 87 and wait days for items I normally grabbed in minutes. I was reduced from being a frontline problem solver to a witness in my own files. I sat at my desk in conference room 2A and stared at the calendar invite from the legal department. I felt like a ghost in the company I had helped keep honest. I could have quit then. I thought about it. I had a few job leads, but I did not want to run. I wanted the truth to be seen. I did not want Jonah's version of events to become the permanent record. So I did what I always did: document, collect, and wait. From the moment I first saw the me-signed referral form, I had been quietly building a stack of paper and electronic proof. I saved server audit logs showing edits to the referral form with exact times. I archived the ticket history with timestamps. I kept every receipt image, every wire trace marked with invoice number INV 2024-1173, INV 2024-1198, and INV 2024-1234. I had a spreadsheet with a column for date, agent name, promotion payout amount, approval status, and a link to the scan in the compliance folder. I kept chat exports of our internal messaging where Jonah had told agents to expedite payouts. I had calendar invites for 3 meetings Jonah had canceled last minute. Those canceled meetings had been the times when we were supposed to run the 2 approval process I recommended. I also kept witness statements. 2 junior agents had emailed me in confidence, admitting they had been told to just make it happen by Jonah. One of them, Miguel, later agreed to speak on the record. The turning point arrived unexpectedly. On October 14, Clearwater held a public review meeting at the annual partner luncheon. It was the same event where I had been humiliated months earlier. The legal department, the head of operations, 2 partners, and several major owners were present in room 4C. One of the owners, Mrs. Lee, had lost nearly $4,000 in a misapplied payout and was now demanding answers. She had brought a stack of documents, and she did not look like the forgiving type. I had been told by Human Resources to sit quietly and let the legal team ask questions. I was not allowed to speak unless called. I could feel Jonah's eyes on me. He had been practicing a calm smile. He stood up when asked to give an update on the Starter Boost program. He had a printed slide deck with graphs that showed volume growth. He thanked everyone and then, as if rehearsed, turned to the audience and said, "Everything here was run under my oversight. If there were mistakes, it is on operations to sort it out, which we are." Mrs. Lee slammed a folder down on the table. She said, "We have emails showing approvals without bank confirmation." She looked straight at Jonah and asked for the chain of approvals. Jonah smiled and began, "We rely on local discretion. Eva manages reconciliation." He glanced at me. I took a breath. I did not stand up. I did not interrupt. I let him speak. That calm waiting was strategic. He was building a narrative. I wanted it to collapse on him. When he finished, the head of operations looked unsatisfied and asked the legal department to present the audit of the Starter Boost pilot. The legal counsel pulled up a timeline and said they had found gaps between March and June. Then Mrs. Lee did something I did not expect. She stood, unbuttoned her blazer, and said, "I have a memo dated March 2 that asked for 2 approvals and a bank receipt." I forwarded it to the head of operations and to Jonah months ago. They ignored it. She slid a paper to the lawyer and then looked at me. She said, "Who wrote this memo?" It was my moment. I rose and walked to the table. My knees did not shake. I handed the legal counsel a manila envelope with a copy of everything I had saved. The envelope contained the March 2 memo, the redlined referral form, the shared drive folder note, time-stamped server logs, the spreadsheet with invoice links, the 32 email threads compressed into a single PDF, invoice numbers, and screenshots of the internal chat where Jonah told agents to process payouts quickly. I also handed over the ticket history for each complaint and the witness emails from Miguel and Samira, both signed with time stamps. I laid the printed audit log on top and said, "This is everything." It shows when the form was edited, who edited it, and the requests I made to require a receipt. It also shows the calendar invites Jonah canceled on March 15, March 28, and April 9. Those were the sessions where we agreed to implement the checklist. My voice was steady. I did not raise it. The room went quiet. The lawyer skimmed and then looked up. He asked Jonah, "Did you receive the March 2 memo?" Jonah's face tightened. He looked at the head of operations and then at the lawyer. He faltered. People were watching his hands tremble. He had a moment where his story had to reconcile with paper. For the first time in months, Jonah stumbled. He said, "I saw a note. I thought it was a suggestion." Then he said something worse. He admitted, "I did not want a process to slow us down. I told agents to proceed and I took responsibility." He looked directly at me. The words came out small. He said, "I made the call. I am sorry. Eva was right." The admission was public and complete. He did not lie. He did not blame junior staff. He did not try to reframe emails. He admitted he had chosen speed over controls and that the consequences were his. The room released, but not in relief. It was a collective exhale. People who had watched me struggle sent me looks that were a mix of apology and surprise. I could have demanded a promotion, an apology, or a formal reprimand. I wanted things handled by the right process. The legal counsel thanked me and said they would compile a formal report to present to the partners and Human Resources. The head of operations asked Jonah to take a leave from operations while they conducted a full review. He was reassigned to a field role with no bonus eligibility until the review concluded. Not fired, but he lost the promotion and the public stature he had worked so hard to maintain. The partners issued a memo restoring the to-approval control on October 20 and added a scan bank receipt requirement for any promotion payout over $800. The real satisfaction was quieter. Jonah had expected me to run in and fix his mess. He thought I would cover for him, rewrite the spreadsheet, or take responsibility to keep the peace. I did not. I refused to rescue the person who had publicly humiliated me. When he came to me privately and said, "Eva, can you help me draft a statement? I need you to clean this up for me," I told him. "I am turning my files over to legal. I will not be complicit in a narrative that erases the truth." I said it calmly. He left without arguing. After the meeting, I received a call from Maple Street Real Estate Advisors. One of their partners had been at the review as an owner and had seen how I handled the packet. They offered me a position as compliance analyst with a clear career path and a salary increase that included a $12,000 sign-on bonus, ironically matching the figure that had sparked the mess. It was an offer I accepted 3 weeks later. I gave Clearwater 4 weeks' notice and handed over a cleaned-up transition folder with step-by-step onboarding documents. There were consequences for Jonah beyond losing the promotion. The formal report required him to undergo a performance improvement plan and to work under tighter audit supervision. He lost his bonus for the fiscal year and was required to complete a company compliance training program with a written acknowledgement that he had failed to follow required controls. He apologized to the team in a private meeting. It was not a public execution. It was an earned correction that matched the scale of the harm he had caused. 3 unexpected details made the story stick. 1, the client Mrs. Lee had kept a copy of my March 2 memo because she had asked for transparency in all payouts. She was the one who forced the audit to be shown publicly. 2, one of Jonah's own calendar cancellations turned out to have been forwarded to him by his assistant with the wrong time zone. That proved he had seen the meetings and had intentionally canceled them. 3, the contractor account that briefly received a $12,000 wire had been the only account with a different routing number pattern, which led the bank to open a trace and the legal department to include the bank's trace report in the final packet. Those small twists made it impossible to smooth over the truth. Leaving Clearwater felt strange. The office had been my second home for 5 years. I loved the work and the people who were not Jonah. I left a clear trail so that the clients and my former colleagues could trust the transitions. At Maple Street, I was given a role where my job was literally to build the controls I had suggested. I now write the checklists I once begged someone to read. The sign-on bonus helped pay off a small student loan and allowed me to take a week off between jobs. I used that week to breathe and to remember what it felt like to keep my voice. There is a maturity in how I handled it. I learned that patience and paper are a powerful combination. I also learned that staying calm is not giving up. It is choosing the most effective move. I still think about Jonah sometimes. I hope he learned to respect processes and to stop believing that charisma can replace controls. I moved on without relish. I left with my dignity and a folder full of evidence that truth matters more than applause.